The following program is classified M. It is recommended for viewers 15 years and over. We recommend the use of the parental lock system.
I've come to make an announcement. Gavin Newsom's a bitch-ass motherfucker. He threw trans people under the bus. That's right. He took Charlie Kirk's tiny dick out and he threw trans people under the bus. And he said his position was this moderate. And I said, that's disgusting. All right, now that that's over with. So, what am I talking about? What the hell's going on here? Why are we shitting on Gavin Newsom? Well, we're going to get into that. So, to preface this, I just want to stress to you guys the state of the United States at this moment when it comes to queer people in general, but especially trans people, right? We love shitting on trans people in the United States of America. It's our pastime. So, just to give you an idea of how bad it's gotten, I want to show you a clip from Donald Trump's State of the Union address saying that teachers are secretly turning students trans.
My administration is also working to protect our children from toxic ideologies in our schools. A few years ago, January, Little John and her husband discovered that their daughter's school had secretly socially transitioned their 13-year-old little girl. Teachers and administrators conspired to deceive January and her husband while encouraging her daughter to use a new name and pronouns. They, them pronoun, actually.
This mom is a child abuser, by the way.
All without telling January, who is here tonight and is now a courageous advocate against this form of child abuse. January, thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Child abuser. Disgusting. Disgusting. So that was our president at the State of the Union. Now, many of you may know I have a wife for a teacher. My wife is non-binary, and I am concerned for her safety and well-being in this state of things. So we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Hopefully we never do. But anyway, the pissed off lawyer. This is just another thing to give you an idea of where we're at with trans rights in the United States. Texas wants to pass a bill making it fraud to be trans and a felony. Unbelievably ridiculous. There's no fraud in being trans. I make no secret that I'm a trans man, although I might have to start with shit like this. What I am is implicit in the title trans. It's self-explanatory. Only a moron would not get the point. A bill to be entitled, an act, relating to creating the criminal offense of gender identity fraud. Be it enacted by the legislature of the state of Texas, Section 1, Subchapter D, Chapter 32, Penal Code, is amended by adding Section 32.515 to read as follows. Section 32.515, gender identity fraud. A person commits an offense if the person knowingly makes a false or misleading verbal or written statement to a governmental entity or the person's employer by identifying the person's biological sex as the opposite of the biological sex assigned to the person at birth. B. An offense under this section is a state jail felony. Section 2, this act takes effect September 1st, 2025. So it's coming. Just throwing that out there real quick. Side note, if you're in Texas, get the fuck out. What are you doing there? I know that some people are having some trouble leaving Texas. I'm thinking about doing a fundraiser for like the transportation of trans people to more safe states. If you're trans and in Texas, I'm sorry. Figure it out, because it's coming. Anyway, that's where we're at. So, what are our lovely representatives doing? Well, here you can see Mr. Gavin Newsom, governor of California, the California, right? The bluest state in the nation, apparently, besides maybe New York. They're tied. Anyway, Gavin Newsom, what is he doing in this picture, you may ask? Well, I picked this picture just to give you a demonstration of what kind of man he is. He's tearing down homeless encampments. By himself. Well, maybe not by himself, but he decided to go out. My point is he decided to go out personally and tear down the encampments himself. Very cool stuff. He could have just, figured out how to house these people and give them good homes and shelter and other such synonyms. But instead, he decided to tear down the little that they have. Clearly, he cares very much about the people of his lovely state. Our next person on our list that we want to talk about, Charlie Kirk. We have our Wikipedia page pulled up right here. You'll see why we're bringing him up in just a second here. He's an American conservative political activist, author, media personality, blah-de-blah-de-blah. Let's skip down a little bit, shall we? Political positions and activities. 2024 Presidential Election / You're Being Brainwashed Tour. The tour has been praised as having a critical role in helping Donald Trump get elected. Very nice. Promotion of falsehoods and conspiracy theories. He stated that he had applied to the United States Military Academy in West Point, New York, and was not accepted. He stated that the slot he considered his went to a far less qualified candidate of a different gender and a different persuasion, whose test scores he claimed he knew. Falsely claimed on social media that Justice Department statistics showed an increase in human trafficking arrests from 1,952 in the year 2016 to 6,087 in the first half of 2018. He deleted the tweet without any explanation the next day. Racial issues and opinions on Martin Luther King. Let's see. Kirk praised Martin Luther King prior to December 2023. Prior to December 22. I wonder what happened there. Variously calling him a hero and a civil rights icon. That December, however, he used a speech at America Fest to describe him as awful, not a good person, and as someone who is admired only because he, quote, said one thing he didn't actually believe. The speech also saw Kirk condemn the Civil Rights Act of 1964, calling its passage a huge mistake, and alleging that it had created a permanent DEI-type bureaucracy. Very good, very good. Let's skip down. Abortion. He argued that abortion is murder and should be illegal. He is against exceptions for rape. Climate change. Supported the extraction and use of fossil fuels. He's a climate change denialist. Falsely claiming that humans have no significant impact. Republican and pro-Trump activism. COVID-19 misinformation. Election fraud claims in the 2021 United States Capitol attack. School board activism. Urging parents to stand up and push back on mask mandates and teaching of critical race theory. Ukraine invasion. Spread false claims from Russian state media that Ukraine was firing mortar shells at Russian separatist enclave in Ukraine. And finally, we have LGBT issues, the one that we're focusing in on today. According to a 2024 NBC News report, Kirk was relatively secular regarding LGBT issues in 2018, but shifted towards more socially conservative stances. Kirk has argued there's an LGBTQ agenda and opposes gay marriage. Kirk has argued against gender-affirming care for transgender people, saying we must ban trans-affirming care, the entire country. Donald Trump needs to run on this issue, according to Media Matters. So, we have our two lovely players set up. What's going to happen? Well, Gavin Newsom decided to start his own podcast. What a big, brave boy he is, going out there and showing the world what he's made of, right? Just like I did, you know? I can respect that, sure. For his first guest, he decides to have our boy Charlie Kirk over here, white nationalist himself. Let's see what kind of things that they like to discuss.
I think you talked about it the other day. A lot of folks were talking about that Carville article where he talked about
roll over and play dead.
Roll over. In essence, he said that.
I think
it was
a
strategic retreat, right? That we need to come back. Trump's starting to implode. His numbers are getting soft. This was even before the tariff issues, et cetera. And then come back and strike when hot. And I immediately, no BS, thought about you, who's just 24/7 flooding the zone, owning this space, every day getting a convert, every day picking up 1, 2,
boy, laying it on thick there, buddy.
Continuing the momentum, coming out of this damn election. And then I'm thinking about...
Just kiss already. Just like, listen, just sloppy kiss. You know you want to. Just do it.
Stand back
Jesus.
And watch you run circles around us for 6 months, the next 2 or 3 years, waiting for the moment to finally strike. Struck me as not necessarily the best advice, and it's not a knock on Carville, who I have deep respect for. What's your thoughts?
That's okay. So I don't have to. He's read about one thing in the last 40 years. It's economy stupid, and boy, he spent down that one line pretty amazingly.
I'm glad they're having a good time.
Retreat.
You kind of like the
more
advice.
For us.
You like
I mean,
the advice.
there's no opposition. There's no activist spark. You guys are posting these cringe videos on social media.
What are the videos? What are the ones that
I don't know.
most
This
cringy?
like harmonious thing of like 22 senators all saying the same thing.
You didn't like that, yeah.
I didn't like it. Go ahead. Go do more of that.
What do you do?
Please.
But what do you do? Seriously, Charlie Kirk, give us some.
Okay, Charlie Kirk honestly has a point here. Like, yeah, what the f was that? Singing? Like, imagine you have, for those who don't know what he's talking about, let me pull it up real quick. I didn't think I'd have to, so give me just a second here. This was the response after they decided to censure Mr. Al Green, which we'll be discussing in another segment.
By its adoption of House Resolution 189, the House has resolved that Representative Al Green be censured, that Representative Al Green forthwith present himself in the well of the House of Representatives for the pronouncement of censure, and that Representative Al Green be censured with public reading of this resolution by the Speaker.
10 Democrats voted in favor of censuring him, by the way. We'll go over that too later. You get the idea. Pathetic. Pathetic nothingness, okay? It's nothing. Mike Figueroa retweeted Colin Rugg. He said, if your 13-year-old son is an avid fan of a white supremacist creep who openly wonders if female celebrities, quote, have any eggs left on his show, you've completely failed as a parent. Very good quote from him. Let's take a look at what's happening here.
Son to bed. He's like, no, Dad. What time? What time's Charlie going to be here? What time? And I'm like, dude, you're in school tomorrow. He's 13. He's like, no. This morning, wakes up at 6 something. He's like, I'm coming. I'm like, he literally would not leave the house.
Did you let him take off school?
No, he did. Of course not. He's not here for a good reason. But the point is the point.
You canceled school for like 2 years. One day.
The point is the point, which is you are making a damn dent.
Thank you. I'm kidding.
When you go to these college campuses, I love watching your TikTok, which is next level. And clearly, that's expressed by my 13-year-old son.
I want to meet this guy.
Yeah, I actually.
He's coming to a Turning Point event this summer, Tampa, Florida, student action.
Sure, why
Summit.
not?
Go
ahead, Gavin.
By the way, if
You should be concerned.
Go ahead, Gavin. Surrender your son to the Nazis. That's a good idea.
But actually, let me say,
good idea.
Here is why I'm concerned, because you have expressed that I should be concerned as a Democrat.
That'll instill faith back into the Democratic Party, I'm sure.
That we're getting clobbered.
Yes.
That you've figured something.
Yeah, you're getting clobbered because you don't do shit, okay? Why are you going to him? You know what? I wasn't going to pull this one up either, but I got a perfect meme for this that I posted to Twitter. As you can see here, the Democrat is more concerned maintaining their friendships with the Republicans than they are with doing anything of any value whatsoever. It happens over and over and over again.
No,
it's not me. The president deserves the credit.
But why? No, hold on. You were at this before Trump was Trump.
I know, but
he was a Democrat back in 2011 and 12.
The president deserves
huge
credit.
Why are you glazing him?
I say that as an obligatory thing, because without him, our movement would be small. And you can appreciate that in politics. You have to appreciate the person who is the catalyst.
For you, that's what you sort of attached an identity with.
It was also
him.
just the catalyst. It was a cultural moment that just opened us up.
Good stuff. We love glazing a white supremacist. All right. I wasn't able to find this anywhere else, so I just wanted to pull up the Majority Report because I listen to them on the regular. If you don't listen to them, what the fuck are you doing? Like, if you listen to me, you should absolutely be listening to them. They're way smarter than I could ever hope to be. And they pull, they have really good news, pull people all over the place who talk about the real issues. Go follow Majority Report. Sam Cedar and Emma Vigland are saints in this world. God, we need them.
Charlie
anyway.
Sheeher. Apparently, Gavin Newsom decided to have Charlie Kirk on his podcast, wherein he agreed 100% with him on trans issues, including agreeing with the framing of gender-affirming care for minors as chemical.
They make me
castration
feel
and
sane
mutilation of
again.
Kids. Effing disgusting. Live for spite, F the right, and F anyone rolling over for them. It's funny you say that, Charlie Sheeher, because we had planned on playing this video. We're gonna go through process of elimination for 2028 hopefuls. This is the game that we're playing here. I mean, Gavin Newsom, if he was at the top of your list, is someone on the left. I don't know what to tell you, but I can at the very least educate you now, because this was him on, I guess, the first episode ever of his podcast. He had Charlie Kirk on. And great get. I mean, wow. He's just, engaging in ideas.
Totally.
That's
his first guest? Oh
his
my God.
first guest
his first guest.
Gavin Newsom, talking about how
Sorry,
we
this
should
is
throw
quiet.
trans people under the bus.
Over and play dead.
Roll over, but in essence, he said that. I think it was a strategic retreat, right? That we need to come back. Trump's starting to implode. His numbers are getting soft. And this was even before the tariff issues, et cetera. And then come back and strike when hot. And I immediately, no BS, thought about you, who's just 24/7 flooding the zone, back to my 13-year-old, owning this space, every day getting a convert, every day picking up 1, 2, 10,000 folks, continuing the momentum, coming out of this damn election. And then I'm thinking about, we're going to stand back and watch you run circles around us for 6 months, the next 2 or 3 years, waiting for the moment to finally strike. Struck me as not necessarily the best advice, and it's not a knock on Carville, who I have deep respect for. What's your thoughts?
That's okay. So I don't have to. He's read about one thing in the last 40 years. It's economy's stupid, and boy, he spent down that one line pretty amazingly. But yeah, look, I'll say I don't want to make this about Carville, but I hope you guys retreat.
You kind of like the
more
advice.
For us.
Like
there's no opposition. There's no.
Yeah, of course he does. What was Gavin Newsom expecting? Like, he literally asks this guy for advice. Like, that's your opposition, dude. What the are you talking about? Why would you ask him for advice? He just, what?
activist spark. If you guys are posting these cringe videos on social media.
What are the videos?
Again, not wrong.
This like harmonious thing of like 22 senators all saying the same thing.
Like that, yeah.
I didn't like it. Go ahead, go do more of that.
What do you do?
Please.
What do you do? Seriously, Charlie Kirk, give us some advice.
Get better ideas, Governor.
Like, for
example, I mean, like, if you want to, you have an opportunity to, run to the middle and seize this man. So obviously you're talking to me about people. Yeah. So like, you right now should come out and be like, you know what? The young man who's about to win the state championship in the long jump in female sports, that shouldn't happen. You as the governor should step out and say no.
No, and I appreciate it.
But like, would you do something like that?
Why?
Would you say
that's not his jurisdiction to do that. That's sports. That's separate from legality. Like, there are obviously basic guidelines that we have for sports, but leave it up to the sports organizations to decide how they're going to run that shit. And I disagree with some of the stuff that they do as well, and I'd be willing to have that conversation. But this isn't even his area to chime in on. Like, why do you want the government in our sports? I thought we were the country of small government, or the party of small government, right? I thought that's what you guys were all about. But
no men in female sports.
Well, I think it's an issue of fairness. I completely agree with you on that.
Hey, great. Okay, so we agree with Charlie Kirk, right? We have to cede the framing to the white nationalist, the transphobe who wants to eradicate trans people off the face of the earth. Very good stuff, man. I'm glad that this guy's on our side.
So it's deeply unfair.
Would you speak out against this young man, A.B. Hernandez, who right now is going to win this
young man, by the way,
state championship in the long jump? I can see you wrestling with
him.
No, I'm not wrestling. I'm not wrestling with the fairness.
I'm not wrestling. Listen, I'm just a little birthday boy, okay? Like, listen. I'm not saying. I'm not like shut the fuck up, man.
Issue. I totally agree with you. By the way, as someone
sputtering mess.
2 daughters, right?
2 daughters.
I have a daughter too,
and a wife that went, God forbid, to Stanford and played on the junior national soccer team, and a guy who got into college only because I was left-handed and could throw a baseball a little bit or hit the ball for a little bit. So I revere sports, and so the issue of fairness is completely legit. And I saw that the last couple of years. Boy, did I saw how you guys were able to weaponize that issue at another level.
Not weaponize. Don't. That's.
Boy, you sure did a good job.
Right. But you were able to
shine a light on,
highlight it in a way that, frankly, I
did not even correct him. By the way, don't you mean young woman? She's a woman. She's a trans woman, Gavin. Can we at least go that far? Listen, okay. I understand that the issue of trans women in sports is contentious. We're gonna go over later. Like 80% of the country, when asked directly, doesn't even think that trans women should be allowed to compete in women's sports, okay? So I'm not saying that I'm ceding ground on that, but at the very least, you can say, hey, Charlie, she's a woman. Can we get that far? Come on.
There are not that many out. We're talking about, I think, NC2A, 510,000? No, but I just didn't realize.
It's 890 medals and trophies that we know of in the last 5 years. That's a lot.
So let me step back, say completely fair on the issue of fairness.
As Emma will go over.
So that's easy to call out, the unfairness of that. There's also a humility and grace.
So there is a study that's being pushed around that there are 890 medals in 29 different sports. Some journalists, it was a UN Special Rapporteur report put together by Reem Aslalem, who is an anti-trans, basically TERF.
Big surprise.
Activist. She was the special rapporteur for the UN sexual orientation and gender identity panel, essentially. But it's been highly criticized that she's an anti-trans activist.
It's bullshit.
And was a part of this regardless.
The study was bullshit. I just wanted to make sure that we all knew that what Charlie Kirk said was complete bullshit. What's so funny, by the way, I want to point this out real quick. They will deny any study that you show them, which is a plethora, almost all of them, right? Like pretty much all of them, showing that trans care works, that trans women belong in sports, that it's not unfair, this and this and that, like trans people. Hey, this study shows that trans people are happy when you give them gender affirming care. Well, I don't know. We didn't study it over 500 years. So like maybe it's not, like they will nitpick the shit out of it, but give them one study that doesn't even show what they wanted to show, and they'll misconstrue it and lie about it and say this study actually proves our point. Just look at the Swedish study. They love pulling that one up. You know what the Swedish study says? It says that people who transition are still more, they still have higher rates of depression and suicide than the average population. Of course they do. They're a disenfranchised community. Yeah, of course they do. But they'll take that study and say, well, look, actually, the surgery doesn't work. That's bullshit. That's bullshit. You lied. I just thought that was interesting. Anyway, let's move on. So we have some Democrats some liberals on Twitter who are backing this up, right? They love Gavin Newsom. You know, Gavin Newsom is sucking on Charlie Kirk's cock, and the Democrats and the liberals on Twitter are sucking Gavin Newsom's cock. It's one big cock-sucking orgy with these people, right? Sahil Kapoor, according to a recent New York Times/Ipsos poll, Americans oppose allowing trans athletes to compete in women's sports by a margin of 79% to 18%. Self-identified Democrats also believe trans athletes should not be allowed to compete in women's sports by a margin of 67% to 31%. So, this is accurate. Make no mistake. Most Americans, unfortunately, are not on board with that yet. That's what we're working with, okay? And I'm sorry to say that, but, you know, even though most Americans, by the way, this is grossly taken out of context, in my opinion, because most Americans will still tell you, even while telling you this, that trans people deserve respect and dignity, okay? And to be treated as though they are the gender that they say they are, all right? That most Americans believe that. This just happens to be one sore spot for them because there's a big, unfortunately, Republicans did a very good job of getting their foot in the door with sports, making people think that, well, it's not fair. Americans are very fair-coded, you know, like they want things to be fair in sports and whatever. So whatever, we're working with what we got, okay? But I do want to point out, it's true that when asked directly, most Americans do not think that trans women should compete in women's sports. However, the overwhelming majority of Americans are not even politically motivated by this issue at all. They're not even thinking about it. They don't care. It's just that when you ask them directly about this particular issue, they'll say, well, I don't know. It's, you know, it's a complicated issue, you know, and you know, it kind of is. I'm not saying it's not, but I'll get to that. I'll get to my thoughts on that in a second. What's important right now is that people don't even think about it when they go to vote. Nationally, 64% of voters recall seeing an anti-trans attack ad against Kamala Harris, but just 4%, dead last on the list, identify opposing surgeries for trans people and trans kids' participation in sports as an issue motivating them to vote. This aligns with research Gallup poll found in September. In fact, when asked directly which candidate represents your views on transgender people, voters picked Harris, 52 to 40%. Crazy, right? Oh my God, Kamala Harris lost because she wants trans people in sports, and she would go all over the place and express how much she wanted trans people to take over sports and win all the gold medals, when she never did that. Okay, if anything, she wasn't harsh enough about her support for trans people, okay? She should have gone harder, if you want my opinion. But I understand it's not politically motivating. So if you're just gonna not talk about the issue, then I'm not gonna be concerned about that. But my point is, voters aren't even thinking about it. They don't care. You know what they care about? Their egg prices. Fucking $10 for eggs. Thanks, Donald Trump, by the way, okay? That's what they care about. But then we have people like Matthew Iglesias. Harris would be president today if she'd said some of the stuff that Newsom said in today's chat with Charlie Kirk. We'd be talking about a more generous CTC instead of Medicaid cuts. Abortion rights would be on firmer footing, and the world would be better off in many ways. Flip-flopping isn't great, but the fact is that when you flop from an unpopular position to a popular one, that is better than sticking with the unpopular one. Disavowing the fracking ban worked fine. So what he's saying here is, hey, maybe we should throw trans people under the bus. Maybe if we just took the trans people and their rights and their issues and their concerns and just threw them all under the bus and have no concern for them whatsoever, maybe then we would win, right? We don't have to house homeless people. We don't have to lower grocery prices or rent prices or house prices or car prices or support unions or give people Medicare for all or any of that shit. Because our donors wouldn't like that. Oh no. What we need to do is take the trans people and throw them into the river and just let them float away. That's what we're working with. F*** you, Matthew Iglesias. F*** you. And f*** anybody who agrees with this bullshit. It's a crock of bullshit, okay? As I said, most Americans aren't even thinking about trans people, and they wouldn't be if not for the Republicans. You are ceding ground to them and framing. They don't care. Let trans people live their lives and be women, okay? By the way, trans women are women, okay? And that gets into my next point. Oh yeah, Peter Hamby was agreeing with them as well. I didn't pull this part up. So that gets into my next point. How big of a problem actually is this even? How many transgender athletes are there in the US? Out of 510 athletes competing at the collegiate level, there are fewer than 10 who publicly identify as transgender. Wow. 10 people out of 510,000. That's like, wow. Boy, what a big problem this is, huh? Man, we really got to get on this. That's crazy, man. Hey, how about we just let them compete? You know, because they're women. I thought we were all on board with that, right, Democrats? I thought that trans women were women. Are they not? Now we're getting into my views. And I understand that my views may be unpalatable to some, but I don't care. Trans women are women. We have men's sports and we have women's sports. If you think that trans women are women, you also think trans women belong in women's sports. That's it. It's that simple, okay? And you don't have to cede ground on that. Trans people, knowing them myself, okay, I'm not a trans person, but I feel like I am correct when I say this, and I have plenty of trans people in my audience right now, so please feel free to speak up if I'm wrong. Don't want your advocacy if it's half-assed. They're tired of that. At this point, you might as well just call them the T-slur, all right? Trans women are women. Period. End of story. If you don't think they belong in sports, then you don't, in women's sports, then you don't think they're women. You don't think they're women. That makes you a transphobe, okay? That makes you a transphobe. And I'm tired of pretending like it's any other way. And most of society is transphobic, okay? And we have to work with that. I'm not saying that everybody who believes that trans women don't belong in women's sports is a devil or is evil. Like, a lot of them really do just mean well. I understand that, okay? I was one of those people up until relatively recently when I thought, like, well, we have to think about, like, testosterone levels. We have to think about muscle mass and bone density and this and this and that and yada, yada, yada. I get it. But we can measure those things absent of a person being trans. Okay? If your criteria is that somebody identify as a woman in order, or if somebody, let me put it this way. If your criteria for somebody competing in women's sports is that they are a woman, then that's the criteria. It's called women's sports. So trans women are allowed, period. If you want to put more stipulations on it, that's fine. T levels, I get it. RBC levels, I get it. What else? Obviously got to do drug screens. You know, we already do that. Muscle mass, I get it, okay? Some kind of muscle mass calculation based on your height. Your height, just your height. Wingspan, we can measure those things. Those are all perfectly measurable. We do physicals on these people all the time. You can measure all of these things and then match people up based on how fair it is, okay? But if you're going to do that, do it across the board. Cis women and trans women. They all have to abide by those standards. And if that's not the case, you are just being transphobic. That is just transphobia. This is what we mean by trans rights, okay? There are different standards for trans women and trans men, frankly, and trans anybody. There's just different standards for them. And it's not fair, and I'm tired of this half-assery, okay? You're either with us or you're against us. And if there's anybody watching this right now, anybody at all, okay? I'm talking to you. If there's anybody watching this who disagrees with me, who thinks that, you know, I'm wrong or my messaging is off or whatever, I would love to have you on. Okay, there are plenty of ways you can message me. The easiest way is on Discord. You can find my Discord in the YouTube description. I would love to have you on, hash this out in a non-confrontational way. Like I said, I know that some people are just concerned about fairness in sports. I hear you, okay? But there are ways to do this without excluding trans women. We just don't have to do that, all right? There's no reason for it. And you're ceding ground to the Republicans by pretending like this is some huge issue. It's not. It's simply not. So f*** Gavin Newsom, Charlie Kirk, obviously, but f*** Gavin Newsom for even bringing him on the show or thinking that was a good idea, for asking advice, sucking his dick, okay? For all of them. For all you people on liberal Twitter who think that Gavin Newsom had a pointer that we should throw trans people under the bus, all of you, okay? Kiss my ass.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to hit the like button, subscribe if you want to see more, hit the notification bell to be notified when I upload. If you enjoy my content, you enjoy what I do, I really appreciate any financial help that I can get. Go to youtube.com/AlecGunterTTV/join. You got some awesome benefits, such as seeing early videos, awesome emotes that you can use in the comments of YouTube videos, and a sweet badge next to your name. So if that sounds interesting to you, I'd really appreciate if you join. It is cheaper than the cost of a blowjob from your mom. So with all that being said, thank you again for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.